So with proof of stake, it's really more or less a refined algorithm, improving on Bitcoin's sort of limitations and downside in order to allow people to, rather than contribute their resource in quite an energy intensive manner, it would allow users to put up some kind of an insurance. And that insurance would act as a collateral so that users who are called validators, they validate the security of the network, they ensure the insertion of new transactions, and it also acts as a deterrent to them. So that if they act in any kind of a dishonest manner, this collateral or this insurance that they put up front would be taken away. So it's essentially a way to keep them in check. However, what's a bit cooler about proof of stake, which is something that we don't really talk about, is how proof of stake switches or transforms Ethereum. Because as we've just discussed, Ethereum is the digital oil, or ETH is the digital oil. It's the equivalent of the US dollar that is facilitating accessibility to a wide range of goods and services. However, when you add the staking yield on top of it, that transforms ETH from just being a digital oil to allowing this new landscape of having the first internet digital bond. Because Ethereum is a public network, at the end of the day, much like the US government is a public entity, you do need a way to ensure that you are able to keep funding this entity. And that's exactly what staking does. You're allowing validators to contribute to this public resource while at the same time allowing them to earn the digital and native token of this resource. This ensures that there's a positive feedback loop and that there's not a mismatch between the interests of the people backing the network versus the one using it. So it's a really novel way, and I think that really gets overshadowed sometimes.
What do you think is the difference between proof of stake and proof of work? What are some of the advantages and disadvantages?
Proof of work is quite a novel mechanism. I don't think it should be. I don't think it's one versus the other, to be very honest. I think there are two different ways of going about solving a specific problem. I think with proof of work, it serves a multitude of purposes in the sense that if you need the highest security possible, proof of work does allow that, and it actually does that in a very environmental way. But one of the cool ways that you can use proof of work is that you're able to use stranded gas. You're able to use energy that goes into waste, recycling it, and then using it as electricity to as a power source to mine new units of Bitcoin. So that's one thing. But then do we really need that for all types of different networks and use cases? I don't think so. But that is the beauty of crypto and blockchain, the diversity of approaches and the diversity of infrastructures. Whereas with Ethereum's proof of stake, it's more so a way to allow more people to actually contribute to the security because you don't need to be powering up your machines 24/7. All really what you need to do is to have a certain amount of ETH to put up as a collateral, and then you contribute to the security of the network. The last thing I think that most people don't really know about is what this
Exactly.
yield is made of. So when we say staking yield, it's really made up of two essential components. It's the consensus layer rewards and the execution layer rewards. With the consensus layer rewards, this comes from token issuance. So the new units of ETH that is coming into the market. This is designed to be predictable because at the end of the day, the most basic function of any blockchain is reaching consensus. So when the consensus layer rewards, this essentially allows the backers of the network to have a very predictable and expected yield that will emanate, and then this allows them to act in a predictable manner, for lack of better words. Whereas with execution layer rewards, this is essentially made up of two components. It's either priority fees or it's MEV. So with priority fees, because Ethereum has an auction model where we're essentially entering into a bidding war where each user can pay a validator a higher amount of fees in order to include his transactions. So with priority fees, that essentially means that this is a way to incentivize or to prioritize the insertion of your transaction into the network. So that's the first component. And then the second component, which I think we can dedicate an entire session for, that's called MEV, maximal extractable value. So this essentially refers to how validators are able to reorganize or strategically insert certain transactions before the other in order to extract the most value out of it. And in traditional finance, this would be called, where it would be looked at as market manipulation, since it includes things like front running and back running. But again, that's a whole other segment or a whole other analyst call that we can get into this. But it's also why we have the report, which we urge everyone to look into in order to have a more in-depth understanding of it.